Welcome back and many thanks for staying with me. Well, we're doing some fact-checking. Shouldn't we do that? Well, President Akufo-Addo yesterday was in Parliament. He spoke about a number of things, the economy, etc. Well, what did he say and what can we fact-check from what he said? Raymond Akwa is in the studio with me. Raymond will help us fact-check the president, some of the president's statements. Raymond, you're welcome, and how are you doing?
Thank you.
Good to see you. You actually look better than I've known you. Okay. All right, let's do some fact checking. Let's start with the economy, Raymond. The president quoted some very big figures. What can we say about what he said about the economy?
So first, his claim on the fiscal targets, for example, he said as compared to a target of 5.3% under the IMF program, the fiscal deficit for 2016 was 9% of GDP on a cash basis and 10.2% of GDP on a commitment basis, and proceeded to say it is very clear, therefore, that the objectives set out in the program, that's the IMF program, have not been achieved, because it could be recalled at the time Ghana entered into the IMF program to restore fiscal discipline, the fiscal deficit was 10.2% of GDP. I mean, this is true because, I mean, the fiscal deficit for 2014 was 10.2% of GDP. What the president actually refused to recognize or decided not to recognize was that the year before, the 2016 year, it had reduced from 10.2 to 6.3 in 2015. Though for more indications, it will be higher for 2016. It's worth noting the 9% of the president mentioned is the estimated figure that the World Bank recognized in its February 10 release. You know, the World Bank in the February 10 economic updates on the IMF's program with Ghana actually indicated some of these figures as the ones that's likely to pan out. Again, the president's figure on the debt stock, which now stands at some 74% of GDP, is actually recognized by the World Bank and other data sources as reflecting the reality on the ground. So that is true. His claim on non-performing loans and, as it's called in local estimates, as bad debt is also true. So on the economic side, the president made fairly true and almost true claims and statements in that particular area.
Okay, well, so that is it for the economy. Well, let's move on and look at agriculture. Yesterday, he mentioned that they're going to embark on a national campaign that's aimed at making agriculture more attractive. Let's hear him on agriculture, the investments they're making in agriculture. And then when we come back, Raymond will help us fact check that.
This campaign order will be anchored on the pillars that will transform agriculture: the provision of improved seeds, the supply of fertilizers, the provision of dedicated extension services, a marketing strategy, and the use of e-agriculture. To initiate the campaign, the district assemblies will be tasked to identify and register progressive farmers in each of the 216 districts. For too long, our farmers have been left to cope by themselves without the necessary support from government. For too long, our farmers have been left to the mercy of the vagaries of the weather. We have decided to embark on a program to provide water to enable all-year farming. We're calling it the One Village, One Dam policy. Food processing has been the first steps towards industrialization in virtually every country, and it is time for us to take it seriously. Not only will it serve to cut down on the wastage of crops during the high season, it will provide more jobs and expand farming business.
Okay, so that is what the president said. Raymond, what's the verdict?
So the verdict on this is that it is true, but it's also misleading, because let's be clear on what exactly the contribution of budgetary allocations and specifically public investments in the agricultural sector. Don't forget, the agricultural sector is the agricultural ministry itself, the fisheries ministry, and other food-related ministries. In the year 2006, the budget allocation was 180 million. The actual spending was 200 million. In the year 2007, the budget allocation was 249, the actual spending was 252. In the year 2008, the budget allocation was actually 244, but the actual spending was 302. And the year 2009, the budget allocation was 402. The actual spending was 432 million. Indeed, if you go to 2010, the budget allocation was 556 million, but ended up having an actual spending of 626 million. The same can be said for 2011, which has 649 million as in budget allocation and having 661 million as the actual spending. If you project to 2012, 783 was the amount of money budgeted for the agri sector ministries, but we ended up spending in the year 2012 914. And it moves on to 2013 and also 2014 and the years that follow in that particular path. Indeed, there are some years that there's been reduction in the amount of money and allocation or public expenditure in that area, but it has not been regular, as the president seeks to say, and has not been consistent that there's been a reduction all the time.
But there has been some sort of reduction.
Yes, in cases like, for example, in the year 2011, 1.9% of the year's budget was actually spent in the agri sector. In the year 2012, or 2.2%, but this pales when it compares to years like 2014, when it was 3.6%. When you go back to 2009 too, it was equally a higher percentage of the year's budget which was actually used.
Okay, so it's not entirely true.
Yes,
but it's true.
This is true but misleading.
True but misleading.
So the facts are there. It reflects what's supposed to be the exact figures, but the interpretation on that is misleading.
It's misleading. Okay. Well, that is fact checking for you. We've spoken about the economy. We've spoken about investments in agriculture. The president mentions job creation, mentions unemployment. Let's hear him on that. And when we come back, Raymond will give us a verdict.
The most critical challenge inherited by this MPP government is the very high, unprecedented level of unemployment, particularly among the youth. It is a debilitating and confidence-sapping problem that affects every home. We can argue on what the official rate of unemployment is, but we can all see the desperation of our young people. They want to work, but there are no jobs, and some of them are being driven to unacceptable behavior. We have a veritable time bomb on our hands. To address this challenge, the government is embarking on one of the most comprehensive programs for industrial transformation ever to be introduced in our country. The key elements of this program are restoration and maintenance of a stable macroeconomy, monetary and fiscal measures which will lead to a reduction in interest rates and a reduction in the tax burden on enterprises, provision of reliable, affordable power to enterprises and homes, setting up of a stimulus package to support existing Ghanaian industries and improve their competitiveness, implementation of the initiative through public-private partnerships to establish at least one industrial enterprise in each of the 216 districts in the one district, one factory policy. Development of strategic anchor initiatives as new pillars of growth for the Ghanaian economy, including the establishment of petrochemical industries, an iron and steel industry, an integrated aluminum industry, the expansion of the domestic production of pharmaceuticals, the establishment of a vehicle assembly and automatic industry, the production of industrial salt, the establishment of garment and textile enterprises, and the manufacture of machinery, equipment, and component parts. Establishment of a multi-purpose industrial park in each of the 10 regions. Implementation of a comprehensive program for SME development. Establishment of an industrial subcontracting exchange to link large-scale companies with SMEs. Implementation of an aggressive program for export development, targeting primarily regional and continental markets. enhancement of domestic retail market infrastructure, and the active promotion of the market and distribution of domestically produced goods, improvement of the business environment through regulatory and other reforms, and establishment of a permanent consultative forum for public-private sector dialogue. We are confident, Mr. Speaker, that through these interventions, significant job opportunities will be open to Ghanaians across the country.
Well, fact-checking unemployment, he says they'll provide better. What is the verdict on that? Here it is. There you have it. Unprecedented. It's false. Raymond, tell us why.
So the claim is that the most critical challenge inherited by this MPP government is the very high, unprecedented level of unemployment, particularly among the youth. The fact of the matter is that, in fact, let's take unemployment generally.
Okay.
The GLSS and the ILO's estimates for Ghana indicates that in the year 2006, it was 3.1. In the year 2010, it inched up to 5.8%.
Okay.
In the year 2013, it's 5.2. Indeed, the ILO currently even estimates that we are running a 3.24% unemployment rate.
Which means that we see a progressive reduction.
So it cannot be unprecedented, the current unemployment rate in Ghana.
Well,
because we've seen higher than this particular figure.
Okay. So we've seen a progressive reduction
in this particular figure.
Okay.
So it cannot be unprecedented. Even if Nana Addo was referring to the other elements of unemployment, which could be youth unemployment, let's watch it this way. In the year 2006, youth unemployment was 6.6%. In the year 2010, it went up to 12.9%.
Okay.
Currently, it is 10.9%.
And a reduction there as well.
Very good.
Right.
So it can also not be unprecedented. Where there should be a greater concern is the number of people who are also involved in vulnerable employment. Some of these people mostly see themselves as also unemployed because the kind of job they're doing, they can lose it and it's not sustainable, it's not one. In the year 2006, it was 75.4%. In the year 2010, it was 71.5%. Currently, it is 68.6%.
Okay.
So from 75 to 71 and 68.6%.
Okay.
So it cannot be unprecedented in this current, even if he meant it to be vulnerable employment.
I see. It's interesting. What if he was referring to something else with the word unprecedented? Is that the problem is with the high unprecedented way that he qualifies?
Yes, but I mean, because he didn't put out a figure, and he even contests that figures are actually issues in this particular sector. But what he cannot forget is that Ghana puts out the Ghana Living Standard Service labor surveys. The labor surveys have been put out periodically to indicate same. If you are reluctant in relying on the local figures, what you can do is to check figures from the ILO that give estimates for every country. That's a comparison of, say, over a very long period of time. So those are two main ways of determining your unemployment situation. And none of them shows a very high and unprecedented unemployment situation in Ghana.
Okay, thank you very much, Raymond Acquah. Some are false, some are true. Some are true but misleading, or some are true but the interpretation thereof was misleading. Raymond Acquah, thank you very much for passing through, and we understand that we'll be getting this every Wednesday. Is that correct, Raymond? Okay, on our Joy News programs on every Wednesday, we'll be getting some fact-checking, just so we know who is telling us the truth and whether or not there is any truth. Well,